The charges were already well known. 27 human women, diplomats, medical officers, cultural exchange envoys, had been beaten, humiliated, and executed on an Eridani-controlled colony for refusing to perform mandatory obeisance. The Eridani Council's official stance: the women had broken law and tradition, nothing more. The incident had been brushed into the record books as an unfortunate but culturally consistent enforcement. The aliens surrounding the dais buzzed with curiosity, but few with outrage. That was the first mistake. When the human delegate was called forward, many expected outrage, tears, or righteous fury. Instead, a single man walked calmly into the circle, his hands clasped loosely behind his back, as if he were strolling into a garden party. He wore the simple navy blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, the collar unbuttoned, the sleeves rolled to the forearms in a studied display of relaxation. His hair was neatly combed, though one rebellious lock always fell across his brow. His eyes, gray, unreadable, scanned the chamber with the soft patience of a schoolteacher waiting for children to settle down. Ambassador Jonathan Hale, the presiding Concord moderator, announced, its voice a whispery vibration, felt in bone more than heard in ear. Hale nodded politely, even gave a small smile, the sort a neighbor might offer when borrowing sugar. Thank you, esteemed delegates. I'll keep my words brief. I know you all have galaxies to run, taxes to collect, star lanes to dispute. He tilted his head, as though sharing a private joke. And we humans wouldn't want to inconvenience anyone. The translator drones relayed his words in dozens of languages: clicks, hums, chemical scents, and light pulses. Some delegates chuckled, interpreting his self-deprecation as weakness. Others squirmed, remembering the stories whispered about humans, their endless adaptability, their strange ability to smile while plotting. Hale lifted a datapad, tapped it once. Holograms flared above the dais, displaying the names and faces of the 27 women. They hovered there, larger than life, their features illuminated by pale light. Soldiers, teachers, mothers, sisters. Hale's voice softened. These are our people. They came here with no weapons, no malice, no agenda, but learning and helping. And they were mishandled. He chose the word with exquisite care, as if it were porcelain. Broken, you might say, for failing to kneel. The Eridani general snorted, mandibles clicking. They defied order. It is our way. Yes, Hale said smoothly, your way. He adjusted the cuff of his sleeve, never raising his tone. Humans have our ways too. We bake pies for neighbors. We argue about sports. We grill meat outdoors on weekends, regardless of the weather. Strange little rituals, I'm sure, to many of you. But woven into all of them, every tradition we carry, is one simple rule. You don't hurt our people. Not our children. Not our women. Not anyone who cannot fight back. A ripple spread across the chamber. Some aliens murmuring to their translators. Others scoffing openly. Hale let the unease grow before speaking again. You may think 27 is a small number. I've heard the whispers already, just 27, as though we're quibbling about broken cargo containers. He gestured toward the holograms. But humans, we don't think in statistics. We think in names. Every one of these women had a story. One was teaching her alien hosts how to sew dresses from local fibers. Another was cataloging native herbs for medicine. One was writing lullabies to trade with your songbird choirs. The insectoid general bristled. They resisted discipline. They invited punishment. Hale smiled again, but this time the expression did not reach his eyes. It was a smile of a man watching a dangerous animal step closer to a trap. You see, that's the difference. You call it punishment. We call it provocation. A test. He leaned forward slightly, voice lowering as though confiding a secret. And humans, as you'll learn, are very diligent about finishing tests. A titter of laughter broke from a jellyfish-like envoy drifting near the chamber's edge. Humans. Always so dramatic. What will you do? Sue us in one of your quaint courts? Hale chuckled softly, nodding. Perhaps. Litigation is very American, after all. But there's another habit we have. When the dinner table is overturned, we don't just set it right. we build a new one. And sometimes, his gray eyes swept the room, we light a fire under those who broke it. The humor was there, but it tasted of iron. Several delegates shifted uneasily. An amphibian philosopher croaked from his perch. Ambassador, surely you don't mean to threaten the Concord. Threaten? Hale raised his brows in genuine surprise. No, no. We humans don't threaten. We promise. Big difference. He tucked his datapad under his arm, as if that settled the matter. And we keep our promises, even the inconvenient ones. The moderator hissed a warning tone. Earth delegation, state your resolution request. Resolution. Hale mused, pretending to think. Yes. Resolution. My request is simple, acknowledgement. A recognition that what happened was not discipline, but an atrocity. The Eridani general clicked angrily. Impossible. It was law. Hale sighed, as though disappointed in a stubborn student. Then perhaps we're wasting everyone's time. Because, you see, humans have another tradition. When law fails justice, we improvise. Improvisation. It's what makes jazz music so unpredictable. You never know where the next note will land. He paused, letting the metaphor linger. And in war, improvisation is something we excel at. The chamber filled with an uneasy silence. Delegates whispered to one another, puzzled, irritated, unsettled. Hale simply folded his hands behind his back again, serene as a preacher at Sunday service. One of the smaller reptilian delegates hissed nervously. You cannot be serious. All this over 27. Hale turned, eyes sharpening, his smile vanishing for the first time. His voice, when it came, was ice. Not 27. 27,000. 27 million. Do you know why? Because when you touch even one of ours, you awaken all of us. Every parent, every child, every soldier. We're not individuals in times like these. We're family. And family doesn't forget. The words dropped like stones into still water. Even the Eridani faltered, wings twitching. The moderator quickly ended the session, vibrating its staff. Deliberations will resume after recess. Hale bowed slightly, as though leaving a polite dinner. Of course. Thank you for your hospitality. We'll take matters into our own hands from here. He turned and walked from a dais, the holograms of the 27 fading behind him. Delegates erupted into chatter, some mocking his melodrama, others whispering about the glint in his eyes, the careful calm in his stride. Outside the chamber, a young aide rushed to his side. Ambassador, do you think they understood? Hale stopped in the corridor, where the light from alien suns filtered through crystal windows. He looked at the aide, and his faint smile returned, gentle as ever. Of course not. They never do at first. They see the smile, not the teeth behind it. But they'll learn. He pressed the datapad into the aide's hands, the faces of the 27 flickering once more. Make sure every ship, every outpost, every farm colony gets this list. No one forgets their names. The aide nodded, pale. And after that, Hale walked toward the docking bay, the polished floor reflecting his steady steps. After that, he said softly, we stop being friendly. And as the chamber doors sealed behind him, somewhere in the depths of space, entire human fleets were already changing course, their engines burning like the first sparks of a funeral pyre. The silence in the Concord chamber lingered like smoke after a fire, but outside its walls the galaxy did not stay still. Whispers ran down trade routes, across mess halls, through markets suspended in orbit around blue suns. Humanity had gone quiet, not the silence of defeat, but the kind of hush before a storm when even the birds seemed to know better than to sing. Alien commentators mocked the stillness. Broadcasts rippled across comm channels. Humans were sulking, licking wounds, perhaps drafting yet another petition to the Concord. Fragile, the Eridani declared. Predictable. Other species agreed. After all, humans were latecomers to the stars, amateurs in galactic politics, newcomers who still carried dirt from their homeworld under their fingernails. What could they possibly do? But in the dark corridors of backwater stations, merchants reported something different. Human freighters were not running their usual circuits. Mining ships had vanished from their belts. The orbital colonies that once lit up with traffic now dimmed their ports and told outsiders they were closed for maintenance. Their silence carried a weight that unsettled those who noticed. It was not retreat. It was consolidation. Ambassador Hale, meanwhile, played his role to perfection. He continued to appear at banquets, conferences, and polite receptions with the same disarming warmth. At a feast hosted by the amphibian philosophers of Rilluin, he toasted their fermented kelp liquor with enthusiasm, remarking how it reminded him of a drink back home called Mountain Dew. The Riluni croaked in confusion, wondering if he referred to a sacred mountain spring. Hale merely smiled and clinked glasses. "You humans are so odd," one Riluni scholar told him. "You joke even when tragedy strikes." Hale swirled the green liquid in his cup. "Oh, that's not a joke," he said lightly. "That's a promise." Behind him, his aides carried themselves with the same poise. Courteous to every alien, generous with handshakes and gentle words, they made humanity appear almost apologetic. Yet beneath the charm ran a current of something colder, sharper. In every conversation, in every exchange, humans dropped small pebbles of detail, hints about supply shipments, exaggerated reports of weakness, offhand remarks about disorganization. The trap was being built not with steel and plasma, but with perception. A cycle later, alien intelligence divisions began to compare notes. The Eridani were pleased to report human fleets were in disarray. The insectoid generals claimed to have infiltrated Earth's military chatter, noting arguments over strategy and shortages. The gaseous Menthuri reported hearing human diplomats complain loudly about fuel scarcity. Each piece looked convincing on its own, but none of the analysts paused to wonder if it all looked a little too convincing. They took the bait because they wanted to. To believe humans were fractured was to believe they were safe. While the galaxy convinced itself of human weakness, the quiet preparations deepened. On Luna's far side, shipyards ran around the clock, their construction hidden by jamming fields that showed nothing but static to prying eyes. In Martian caverns, recruits trained in close quarters, their instructors drilling into them not only how to fight, but how to think as predators. Out in the asteroid belt, civilian prospectors surrendered their hulls to military transports without a word, the ore vanishing into foundries that belched smoke like ancient volcanoes. Hale spent these weeks smiling. He shook hands with insectoid generals who boasted of Eridani supremacy, and he smiled. He clapped the jellyfish envoy on the shoulder when it joked about human melodrama, and he smiled. He raised a toast at a Concord banquet, praising the virtues of peace, and he smiled. But in private, when the doors shut and the lights dimmed, his eyes lost all warmth. He would lean over holographic maps, voice calm and precise, assigning targets and predicting responses like a chess master counting 36 moves ahead. "We let them think they've mapped us," he told his commanders. "Every misstep they see is one we placed. Every argument they overheard was staged. Every missing freighter was redirected. When the time comes, they'll walk into the field we've sown for them, and they'll never know until it's too late." One commander, a veteran from Earth's surface wars, asked softly, "Sir, what do we tell the people when the hammer falls?" Hale's face softened. "The truth. That this isn't vengeance. It's family business. They touched what we don't allow touched. We're simply reminding them that family is the one law older than any concord." The aliens still scoffed. On the Eridani news feeds, commentators laughed about barbecue apes rattling sabers. On Menthuri broadcasts, gaseous analysts claimed humanity's industrial output was faltering. "They cannot even maintain enough plasma torches," one sneered, "let alone wage war." The Concord filed endless motions, urging humans to calm themselves, to follow proper channels, to respect the law. Hale answered every one of them with courtesy. "We appreciate your concern, truly, but you needn't worry about us. We're just preparing dinner." The phrase became a joke among alien circles. Whenever a deal fell through, merchants chuckled. "Ah, they must be preparing dinner." When fleets were delayed, officers smirked and muttered, "Preparing dinner." To them, It was proof of humanity's eccentric humor. But to humans, those words became code. Families whispered it to each other as they packed for evacuation drills. Soldiers muttered it before slipping into simulators. Engineers engraved it into the metal hulls of ships. Preparing dinner meant readiness. It meant war. The first to sense unease were the philosophers. The Reluni, who had once laughed, now replayed Hale's toast in their minds. The way he had said Mountain Dew with such care, the way his smile had flickered when he spoke of promises, it nagged at them. They remembered how his eyes had cooled, how his bodyguards had stood like statues with their hands too close to hidden weapons. The Reluni began to murmur warnings, but their voices were drowned in the noise of laughter. Then came the leaks. Alien spies intercepted fragments of human transmissions. Static-laced voices whispering coordinates, cargo lists, fuel shortages. They rushed the data to their superiors, who celebrated with smug relief. See, they said, the humans are desperate. Their fleets are splintered. They cannot sustain a war. But one young Eridani analyst, poring over the files late at night, noticed something odd. The numbers were too neat. The shortages too perfectly aligned. The mistakes too symmetrical. She brought her concerns to her general, who waved her off with a clack of mandibles. Humans are sloppy. That is all. Do not overthink. Still, she couldn't shake the image of Hale standing in the Concorde chamber, smiling like a man who already knew the ending to a story. Meanwhile, on Earth, the mood had shifted. It wasn't rage burning in the streets, but something colder. Communities gathered not in riots, but in quiet, coordinated meetings. Families prepared packs. Farmers offered grain to military convoys. Children painted the names of the 27 on classroom walls, their letters crooked but resolute. Humanity wasn't screaming. It was focusing. At a press conference, a foreign journalist asked Hale why humans seemed so calm. Hale smiled again, that soft, neighborly grin. Because we're slow to anger, he said. But once we're there, we tend to stay. The audience laughed nervously, unsure if it was humor or warning. Hale offered no clarification. One evening, a captured alien spy in human territory intercepted a broadcast. It seemed at first like ordinary music, a twangy guitar, a voice singing of loss and home, a tune no alien could quite comprehend. The spy recorded it bemused, until the song cut abruptly. Static filled the channel. Then a single phrase spoke clear and cold across every human frequency. For the 27. The spy delivered the recording to her handlers. When they played it, silence fell in the briefing chamber. There was no laughter this time. The words rang with something deeper than anger. They rang with inevitability. Across the stars, in hidden shipyards and darkened stations, humans finished their preparations. Hale stood in his office aboard a command carrier, staring out the viewport at Earth, turning below, blue and fragile, yet unbroken. His aide approached hesitantly. "Ambassador," the aide said, "the fleets are ready. The Concorde still insists you return to negotiate." Hale did not turn from the window. Let them insist. They think this is about politics, but it isn't. His reflection in the glass showed his faint, polite smile. This is about family. The aide hesitated. What if the aliens never understand? Hale finally looked at him, eyes steady as stone. They don't need to understand. They just need to remember. Outside, the carrier's engines lit like dawn breaking, and dozens more ships stirred in formation, their shadows blotting out the stars. The trap was no longer bait. It was a sprung snare, steel jaws closing around the galaxy. And somewhere on a dozen alien worlds, civilians woke in the night without knowing why, shivering under skies that suddenly felt far too quiet. The first strike was not a scream, but a whisper. No declaration, no rallying horn, no grandiose speeches to the Concorde. One moment, alien fleets patrolled border sectors with a lazy assurance of hunters confident their prey had been cowed. The next, those fleets ceased to exist. Reports bled into Concorde channels like wounds. A dozen Eridani battlecruisers vanished in the Yolde Nebula, their wreckage scattered in silent ribbons. A mentary gas hive was breached, its atmosphere sucked into vacuum, leaving thousands of drifting husks. The jellyfish envoys of Tan awoke to find their orbital ring gutted, its defense satellites surgically excised. Every strike was precise, deliberate, not random destruction, but carefully chosen blows that shattered the illusion of security. The galaxy reeled, trying to piece together what had happened. The answer was simple. Humanity had taken off its mask. Ambassador Hale remained calm even as chaos erupted in the Concord halls. He continued to sit in on meetings, sipping his tea with a practiced serenity, listening as delegates shrieked accusations. Terrorists, some cried. Unprovoked aggression. Others hissed that humans were violating every law of the Concord. Hale merely tilted his head, as though considering the weight of their words. Unprovoked, he asked softly, setting down his cup. Forgive me, but wasn't provocation precisely what you insisted on? You bruised our kin and called it law. You burned 27 candles into our memory and expected us to forget. His eyes swept the chamber, gray and cold. We don't forget. The Eridani general slammed his claws onto the table. You will pay for this insolence. Hale smiled gently, like a man humoring a child's tantrum. We already paid, with 27 lives. Now the balance is owed by you. Back in the field, human forces revealed themselves in ways that unsettled every analyst. Aliens had always assumed humans were chaotic, disorganized, prone to impulsive strategies. But now, their movements were terrifyingly exact. Fleets appeared not where they were expected, but where they would cause the most psychological damage. A mining colony that once supplied Eridani fleets? Neutralized. A Concord archive storing records of human weaknesses? Erased with surgical strikes. Every human action suggested a meticulous playbook drafted long before the first shot fired. And yet, in their communications, humans spoke not like conquerors, but like neighbors. Pilots laughed over comms, comparing strikes to baseball games. That's a clean home run, one shouted as an alien destroyer split in half. Infantry units shared barbecue recipes mid-firefight, their chatter leaking into enemy channels. When this is done, ribs on me, a sergeant drawled as his squad secured a control tower. To the aliens who intercepted these words, it was baffling. To humanity, it was ordinary. War and humor walked hand in hand. One alien report, captured and circulated in hushed tones, described the terror this duality inspired. They kill with precision, but they laugh as though they are at a picnic. They mourn with one breath and joke with the next. It is not cruelty. It is something worse. It is comfort. Hale's hand guided it all. From his flagship, he issued orders in a voice that never rose, his demeanor calm even as the galaxy burned. Strike here, he'd murmur, tapping a star system. Leave this one untouched for now. Fear spreads faster when you don't destroy everything. Give them space to imagine what comes next. His aides watched him with a mix of awe and unease. To them, he no longer resembled the smiling diplomat of banquets and speeches. He looked like what he truly was, a predator wrapped in manners, a tactician whose politeness sharpened every edge of his cruelty. Alien leaders convened emergency councils, demanding to know why their forces were failing. The Eridani generals barked orders, sending reinforcements that walked straight into ambushes. The gaseous mentary attempted to collapse human supply lines, only to find the humans had baited them with false convoys. Every countermeasure unraveled into humiliation. One philosopher from Riluan finally voiced what others feared to admit. We mistook their smiles for weakness, he said, his gills trembling. We thought them sheep, but sheep don't hide knives beneath their wool. Meanwhile, ordinary humans carried the war like a song. In hidden bunkers, families etched the names of the 27 into walls. Soldiers painted them onto armor. Children wrote them in chalk on streets. Every strike, every maneuver, was whispered to be for the 27. The aliens began to hear it too. Broadcasts intercepted in the heat of battle carried that same phrase, spoken softly before weapons fired. For the 27. It echoed in the minds of enemies who began to realize they were not fighting an army, but a family, united in grief. At the Concord, Hale was cornered by a delegation demanding explanation. A crystalline envoy shimmered with rage, its voice like glass grinding. Your people are destabilizing the galaxy. Do you not see? You will bring chaos to us all. Hale folded his hands neatly. Chaos. He shook his head. No. This is order. The only order we recognize. Harm one, and you invite all. You've never understood that, have you? We don't scale our grief to numbers. 1 is enough. 27 is forever. The envoy glared. You cannot destroy entire civilizations for 27 lives. Hale's smile was kind, almost pitying. Can't we? Watch us. The strikes grew bolder. Human fleets no longer skulked in shadows. They arrived in formation, vast armadas blotting out suns, their ships painted with names and symbols, their engines glowing like fire at dawn. Where once aliens had mocked human industry, now they trembled at the sight of ships built in secret numbers no one thought possible. The Concord's analysts, scrambling to adjust, admitted humanity had mastered logistics in silence. They hadn't grown weaker. They had grown patient. Still, not every alien stood in opposition. Some began to whisper admiration. The oppressed races who had long suffered under Eridani cruelty found hope in the human defiance. They fight for their own, one said, but perhaps they fight for us too. Rebellion sparked in corners long forgotten, embers lit by humanity's example. Hale anticipated this as well. We don't need to conquer the galaxy, he explained to his commanders. We just need to remind it. Remind them what happens when you mistake our courtesy for fragility. But for all his calm, the toll was not absent from him. Alone in his quarters, he sometimes lingered over the holograms of the 27, his gray eyes softening. He whispered their names under his breath, each syllable like a prayer. Then, when the door chimed and his aides entered, he straightened, the mask returning, the smile polished once more. The aliens began to see the truth too late. The young Eridani analyst, who had once doubted the intelligence reports, now stood before her superiors with shaking claws. We thought they were hiding weakness, she admitted. But they were hiding strength. Every mistake, every shortage, every argument, it was staged. They laid this for us, and we walked into it willingly. Her general sneered, unwilling to admit failure. But even as he spoke, reports flooded in of another fleet annihilated, another world lost. The analyst turned her gaze to the stars outside the viewport, and for the first time, she feared them. On the human flagship, Hale convened his commanders for the next phase. A holographic projection of the alien homeworld hovered between them, its continents glowing faintly. The room was silent, the weight of decision pressing like gravity. Hale placed his hand on the table, voice steady. We've shown them the teeth. Now we show them the bite. This is not cruelty. This is inevitability. They wanted to test how far we'd go for 27 lives. He looked each commander in the eye. The answer is all the way. The room filled with grim nods. Orders were transmitted. Engines roared. The galaxy tilted on its axis. As Hale dismissed the meeting, he lingered at the doorway, glancing once more at the holographic world soon to face humanity's wrath. His voice was low, almost tender, as though speaking to the ghosts of the 27 themselves. We told them we were friendly. They didn't listen. Now they'll learn. And as the human fleets cut through the void, converging on the alien homeworld like wolves circling wounded prey, the stars themselves seemed to dim, as though bracing for the storm. The alien homeworld hung in the viewport like a jewel carved from dark stone, its continents glowing under the pale wash of twin suns. It should have looked eternal, secure beneath its vast orbital defenses and layered fleets. Instead, to human eyes, it looked already broken. Every shielded satellite, every heavy cruiser, every orbital cannon had been mapped, catalogued, and rehearsed in human war games months before the first strike. The human armada stood in formation beyond the planet's moons, silent and still, engines glowing like rows of candles at a wake. Soldiers strapped themselves into harnesses, whispering the names of the 27. Pilots tapped photographs taped to their dashboards. Engineers placed hands on bulkheads as though blessing them. No one cheered, no one laughed now. This was not triumph, it was ritual. Ambassador Hale stood at the center of the command deck, hands folded behind him, posture relaxed as if waiting for a train. Around him, officers murmured coordinates, adjusted targeting systems, confirmed trajectories. He absorbed it all with a calm nod, his gray eyes fixed not on the world itself, but on its orbiting bastions, the glittering teeth of a civilization that had once believed itself untouchable. "Sir," a young lieutenant asked, voice hushed, "do we transmit terms before we fire?" Hale's lips curved into that same neighborly smile. "Of course. It's only polite." The communication beam lanced toward the alien capital, cutting through interference. In the palace of the Eridani Council, the message bloomed into the chamber. Delegates froze as Hale's face appeared, serene as a schoolteacher addressing unruly pupils. "Good evening," he said pleasantly, though the planet's clocks marked it as midday. "I hope I'm not interrupting. I imagine you're busy drafting condemnations and speeches. But I thought it courteous to speak to you directly before matters escalate." The Eridani general, who had once dismissed him, clacked his mandibles in fury. "You dare threaten our world with annihilation?" Hale tilted his head, smile unwavering. "Threaten? Oh no. That would imply doubt. I'm not here to threaten. I'm here to explain." He gestured slightly, and the hologram behind him shifted. The faces of the 27 women appeared, hovering above his shoulders like silent witnesses. "These are the reason you find yourselves in this predicament. Not armies, not fleets, not resources. Just them. 27 names, 27 lives. You broke them because they would not kneel. You called it discipline. We call it the line you should never have crossed." An amphibian philosopher dared to croak. They were 27 among trillions. Why should the galaxy burn for them? Hale's eyes hardened, though his voice stayed gentle. "Because 27 is not a number to us. It is a family. A family violated is a wound that spreads through every vein of our species. You thought we measured life the way you do, statistics, ratios, acceptable losses. We don't. We measure life in stories, in names, in the way absence echoes at a dinner table. That's why you will lose." The general spat. "We will resist. You cannot breach our defenses." Hale allowed himself the faintest chuckle, the sound warm and unsettling. "Resist? My dear general, you've already lost. You just haven't accepted the lesson yet." The feed cut. Silence held the command deck for a heartbeat, broken only by the soft hum of engines. Then Hale spoke, voice steady as a judge's gavel. "Begin." The sky above the alien homeworld ignited. Human ships moved not like fleets, but like a single organism, striking in perfect unison. Orbital cannons that had stood for centuries flared once, then died, their targeting systems hacked days earlier. Defense cruisers fired blind into empty void, chasing phantom signatures seeded by human decoys. Satellites exploded in a chain of fire, debris raining down into the planet's atmosphere like sparks from a pyre. On the ground, alien civilians looked up, expecting to see their fleets protecting them. Instead, they saw burning trails carve the sky. Panic spread not with the chaos of mobs, but with the quiet dread of realization. For the first time, they understood the humans had never been improvising. Every step had been scripted, every move rehearsed. Within hours, orbital supremacy belonged to humanity. Dropships descended like iron rain, but they did not level cities indiscriminately. They struck command centers, shipyards, communication hubs. Precision, always precision. The goal was not annihilation, but humiliation, the stripping of pride until nothing remained but memory of the mistake. Alien leaders flooded the Concord channels, begging for intervention. "Stop them," they cried. "Invoke the treaties. Humanity is out of control." But the Concord was paralyzed. Some feared joining the fray and sharing the Eridani's fate. Others secretly whispered approval, remembering centuries of oppression under Eridani claws. And so the pleas went unanswered, leaving the world to burn alone. On the surface, one last stronghold remained, the palace bunker where the council had hidden. Human Marines breached its doors with clinical efficiency, their armor scarred but steady, their rifles cradled like tools rather than weapons. They moved without shouting, without cruelty, faces set in grim focus. To the aliens watching from behind barricades, their silence was more terrifying than any roar. Hale himself walked into the council chamber, unarmed, his uniform spotless. His boots echoed against the marble as he approached the trembling delegates. Behind him, the names of the 27 flickered across a portable hollow projector, casting pale light across the chamber walls. The Eridani general lunged forward, spittle flying. "You savage! You dishonor the Concord." Hale regarded him as though studying a curious insect. "You speak of honor? You executed unarmed envoys and called it custom. If that is your honor, then I am proud to dishonor it." The general's mandibles clicked furiously. "You cannot erase us." Hale stepped closer, until the alien could see the calm steel in his eyes. "Erase you? No. We don't erase. We remember. And so will you. Every child on this world will grow up knowing it was 27 lives that broke you. Every street will whisper their names. You will not be erased. You will be defined." The general faltered, wings twitching. Around him, the council members bowed their heads, not in reverence, but in surrender. Outside, the last defense grids collapsed. Human ships hung in the skies like sentinels, their weapons silent now, but their presence thunderous. The planet had fallen without the kind of slaughter the aliens expected. It was worse than slaughter. It was domination by precision, a lesson carved not in ashes, but in memory. Hale stood in the ruined council chamber, his expression finally softening. He turned to his aide. "Transmit to the fleet. Ceasefire. Secure the world. No unnecessary blood." The aide hesitated. "Sir, after all they've done?" Hale's gaze lingered on the holograms of the 27, his voice low. "We do this for them, not against anyone else. Vengeance without restraint is chaos. Justice with memory, that's the lesson." The aide nodded, throat tight, and relayed the command. Across the skies, the thunder ceased. The world lay silent beneath its conquerors, waiting for the next word. Later, Hale addressed the Concord through a galaxy-wide broadcast. His face filled the screens of stations and outposts, his tone calm, his smile almost gentle. "Today you have seen what humanity does when family is touched. We do not fight for conquest. We do not fight for power. We fight for memory. 27 lives, 27 stories, 27 promises unkept. We will never forget them, and now neither will you." He leaned forward slightly, as if speaking across a dinner table. "This is not a threat. This is a reminder. You may test us again, but know this. Our patience is vast, our courtesy genuine. Yet beneath it all, we remain what we have always been, apex predators who learn to smile. Don't mistake the smile for surrender. Don't mistake kindness for weakness. And never mistake 27 for a small number." The feed ended. Across the galaxy, silence reigned. Species who had once mocked humanity now whispered of them as something else entirely, not just allies or rivals, but a force older and more primal than they had guessed. In the days that followed, the Eridani homeworld rebuilt under human oversight. The 27 names were etched into monuments, recited in schools, carved into the very walls of the council chamber. They became more than martyrs. They became anchors, binding memory to consequence. Ambassador Hale walked once more through the halls of the conquered palace. His steps were quiet, his hands clasped as always. To the guards he passed, he gave polite nods. To the children who peeked from doorways, he offered a gentle smile. He was the same man who had entered the Concord chamber weeks earlier, calm and neighborly. Yet now, the galaxy knew the truth behind that smile. At dusk, he stood on a balcony overlooking the alien city. Fires still smoldered in the distance, but above them the stars shone clear, indifferent and eternal. Hale breathed in, let it out slowly, and whispered the names of the 27 one final time. His aide approached, hesitant. "Sir, what happens now?" Hale's smile returned, faint but steady. "Now we go home. We've taught the lesson. The rest of the galaxy will write it down in its bones. That's enough." He turned back toward the stars, their cold light glinting in his eyes. "For the 27, he murmured. And above the conquered world, the human fleet held its silent vigil, an entire species standing as one, waiting for the next hand that might dare touch their family.